Ex-fiancé shattered my face and our life, but now the law is finally catching up with him, and I'm rebuilding everything. My fiancé caved my face in with his fist. They think I might lose my eye after surgery. I have been at my dad's house with our 2-year-old daughter. My dad is sick, so most of the time I am watching her alone, and it's been so hard because my orbital bone is shattered, so I can only reliably use one eye. I am in so much pain and so tired. I can't believe this happened to me. All I ever wanted was to feel appreciated. It was the last thing we were arguing about. I wanted to feel more seen in the relationship, and I felt hurt and haunted by his past problems. I feel like I will never be happy ever again. I'm so tired and sad. For those who didn't get to read it, my fiancé 28M punched me, 31F, at least twice. I am not sure if more because I think I may have blacked out, and I had to immediately be sent to my local ER and then transferred to a city hospital further away for emergency surgery. We have a 2-year-old daughter together that was napping in her room as this unfolded in our home. I wanted to say thank you so much for all the kind words and support. I am doing a lot better and have been working nonstop to pick up the pieces of my life and make sure my daughter feels safe and secure in this horrible time period. I felt bad I didn't get to respond to anyone, but my left eye right now is of very limited use. I would like to elaborate more on what happened for those who were concerned and reaching out to send support to me. We were arguing over almost everything this particular morning while my daughter was asleep, but it almost doesn't even matter at this point. Arguments that would just segue into more arguments all morning. I was so tired and frustrated and not backing down. I had been up most of the night and all morning so he could sleep, and had to wake him up early before work to get insurance fixed for our daughter, and the process was like pulling teeth. He resented me so much the more I actively wanted to fix our problems, not only in our relationship but also as adults trying to stay functional. Everything from brushing his teeth, to constantly choosing watching porn instead of spending time with me and the baby, all the way to hanging up on her insurance directory. Everything was for me to rush in and fix him, and I just didn't want to anymore. I felt so constantly unseen. I buy him flowers or pick them myself while out on walks and make him bouquets all the time, and he has never done it once. He spent more time in our relationship actively flirting with other females, some of them being my own friends, one being a 17-year-old he met in a hentai server. Instead of ever considering me or how I feel, I felt like I make everything beautiful around me, but I was destroyed and miserable in the process. He started taking a more active role as a father after I found out he was watching porn for hours daily while I desperately needed help with colic newborn, and I had a severe mental break and spent my first Mother's Day in a psych ward. He became incredibly thoughtful and active with our daughter from there on in, but paying attention to me was still always an afterthought. It came to the point it didn't matter to me anymore, and I think there was more resentment than love on both sides. One of the last things I said to him was I was refusing to walk away from the argument until he acknowledged how much I do and how little he contributes to bringing life into our small family. I was fuming at this point. He lost it immediately and screamed, "Why don't you just fucking leave already?" and began to break his desktop computer. When he grabbed the computer and ripped it out from under the desk to break it, he either purposely or accidentally knocked me backwards into a wooden table in the process. I got up and shoved him back, and we both began shoving each other. It was just a huge blur for me at these next few points, but the shoving and hitting continued from both of us at this point. The fight moved by his office door into the living room, and I fell backwards onto the couch right next to the door. I thought it was just over at this point as I just flailed backwards, but he raised his dominant hand up and punched me as hard as he could. I felt such an immediate heat and pain in my eye I have never felt before, and my vision went black. I screamed so badly from the pain, and before I could even process what happened, he took that time to rewind his fist back and punch me again, full force again. I was so terrified at this point, and I knew I was feeling pain I had never felt before my entire life. I don't remember much at this point, and it felt like a third-person experience. I remember being on my living room floor as he walked away and slammed his office door. I saw blood began gushing from my face and spewing into the hardwood floor, but I was incredibly dizzy and still couldn't figure out exactly what had happened to me. I heard him on the phone with police at this point, and I began shouting for help, saying I can't see and crying out in so much pain. He ignored me please and stayed silent in his office for about another 10 minutes. I had to get up, but I was so dizzy, and I couldn't see well at this point as blood was matted into my hair and dripping down to my neck and also from both my hands to my wrists. I was able to find my phone to call 911, and I told them I think he broke my nose because I couldn't feel my face and didn't realize the blood was actually coming from my eye socket. Police arrived while I was making the call, and he had slammed his office door so hard prior he was locked in the office and couldn't answer the door for police. I had found my way to the door while still losing a large amount of blood, and I was very dizzy and blinded. When I opened the door, the female officer started shouting and pulled me out immediately and called for EMS. He was arrested immediately and even laughed when he finally got his office door open, acting like it was so silly. My daughter, thank God, was asleep for this, but had woken up only about a minute before police arrived. They wanted me to go check on her, but I refused because I was absolutely drenched in blood. It was so much that police couldn't tell where my injury was either. I let them check on her while I washed up and hid the left side of my face with a large jacket hood so I didn't scare her. My orbital bone was completely shattered, and I have been in and out of consciousness before my emergency surgery. They let me take my daughter with me to the hospital, and I gave up the exam bed for her to play, and I mainly focused on trying to keep her happy and calm, but I was so terrified. I wanted to sign myself out because I didn't have anyone to watch her for me, but they said they were certain I would be blind in my left eye soon if I left without getting help. My dad was able to show up and take my daughter for me, and both hospitals were so extremely kind and helpful to me. They even gave my dad a brand new child car seat so he could take her to his house. When I had surgery, the surgeon told my dad this was quite severe and I'm lucky to have my eyeball at all right now. There was a very large hole where he punched and I had bone fragments scattered across my face, into my cheek and nose, and also behind my eye socket. I still don't know fully what they did to repair my orbital bone, but I'm pretty sure they have to make a replicated part to repair the fracture since it was broken and smashed into pieces. The anesthesiologist asked if he shattered his knuckles during this and was surprised he didn't. I will never go back. I am working with a DV advocacy group who is helping make sure my medical forensic exam but also the surgery information is showed to police and a judge, so he will have multiple felony charges. My eye will probably still be functional, but it'll never be the same again. I have been through so many emotions in this time period, but I do feel a sense of peace knowing this is permanent and I can move on now. My daughter and I were granted a standard 6-month restraining order from him and I am ready to increase the time span, and I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. I am still doing what I do, bringing beauty to everything around me. It's been raining and I brought my daughter outside with her raincoat and rain boots and we followed a busy bumblebee around for an hour together while splashing in puddles. I am in severe pain, yes, but I will not let this sad excuse of a person make my daughter miss a single stride in her life right now when she needs stability and joy the most. She is doing very well, but I think she knows I'm injured. CPS has been alerted and I keep in touch with them to check in on us weekly so far. When she saw my face finally, she studied it briefly and brought her hand up to her eye and placed it there. My heart breaks for her more than it does for any physical pain I feel. I would lose both my eyes if it meant bringing her the safety and love into her life she needs more than ever right now. Sometimes at night I still feel the sadness creeping in, but I have been keeping myself busy in between resting. I also just cannot forget how cruel so many of his actions were that day. He didn't even tell the police I was injured. He saw blood spew from my eye and walked away from me. He deliberately wound his fist back an additional time to make sure I was deeply maimed by him. No matter how many ways I try to think about it, I cannot find a way to explain this one away in my head like I have many of his past blunders and warning signs. 2 months ago he had his therapist remove his anger disorder from his mental health diagnosis. He broke hundreds of dollars of things in the past and would make verbal threats at me, with the most sincere anger in his eyes that really used to scare me a lot. He never cared. He cared that I was a convenience enough to keep around and only cared if I interrupted this easily accessible life convenience. I was a commodity to him, and that's why it was so easy for him to break my face like a child angry at a toy and walk away to leave me to bleed alone on the ground. I will never forget. This is the most dangerous and costly lesson I have ever experienced on how important it is to advocate for my own inner peace and learn to stand up for myself enough to leave when it was being disrupted, that I love myself, and that I have value that deserves to be reciprocated instead of neglected. I will never let it go this far ever again, and I love myself right now more than I ever have my entire life, and that he will never be able to take this away from me ever again. Oop. He is out right now and I don't know where, but it's not our home because the police told him if he returns there he will be arrested. He went to my mom's house initially for help once he was cut loose. He asked to live with her, asked her for money, and in the same breath, said I had choked him and I deserved what happened to me. I let my mom give him gas money when she told me and sent him on his way. He tried to get housing with social services but admitted that he beat me, and once they found out, they removed him from whatever temporary place they had him housed. He left a message to friends in a communal forum server saying things will blow over in a month. He also admitted he beat me in that post too. He said the same thing to our landlord as well, and again I've had to either tell people he beat me or they just see me and I have no choice but to explain it. He had no injuries on him and it's been noted by police who took him in. They examined him for choking and it's been unfounded, and the officer who helped me told me she knows I didn't do that, and knows he is lying and it will weigh against him badly. I have been keeping evidence of everything. It's not going to be an easy battle at all once custody hearing starts. I sucker punched him and gave him a cut on his lip the day I was sent to the psych ward and missed Mother's Day. I have to refrain elaborating why that incident happened, but all I can say is it was something beyond severe and they believed me, and this time they seized his computer and phone to search for what I had warned law enforcement about the day they psyched me. If anyone reading this wants elaboration on that DV incident where I was a perpetrator of a punch and I became psyched, I will absolutely share in PMs. But yes, I think some of the things I discovered that lead to the DV event were him actively speaking on and showing heavy interest in illegal things such as pro-pedophilia remarks and incestuous remarks about his younger sisters, but they didn't seize his computer or phone that day, but they really should have. They seem to have read back to that old case and believe me this time. They asked for the screenshots of what flew me into a psychotic break. It's going to be really hard for me to explain and discuss it in court, and I'm being given a lawyer, so I will have to have them help me make my screenshots of evidence from that night clear and comprehensive. It's shameful I did what I did, and I don't excuse myself for busting his lip prior no matter what I witnessed on his electronic devices. And now I will have to fight even harder and it'll look bad. I will have to do everything I can to fight for my daughter's safety. Both CPS and law enforcement are asking for my evidence from that incident, so I think they understand and believe me I discovered horrible things. I am thankful they reached out to ask for the evidence. I also have evidence he was in contact with a 17-year-old in a pornographic forum server and was flirting with her. It should have never went this far for either of us. I was incredibly reluctant to return to the home and keep parenting together after the psych ward incident, but both our families asked me to give him a chance and get him in therapy for his anger and sexual mental issues. He asked me to delete the evidence of his sexual deviancies several times, but I refused to, and now I am so thankful I never did. His therapist did reach out and disclose to me recently that he has been admitting these things in therapy, however, both the sexual and anger issues. And she did say she was extremely concerned about this as well. He is very dangerous right now, especially with the lack of remorse in so many different scary facets, that I really have to fight as hard as I can for my daughter to be safe. I feel so much disappointment in myself that my entire being back during the first physical incident that I messed up so badly and I didn't just leave. It's clearly something I will have to show the court. I have heavily worked on resolving my mental health issues since then, and I've been consistent and steered clear of reacting with physical rage ever again. I am angry at myself that my foolish past outburst will likely be now discussed. I can't stop being angry at myself for it right now. More complex, and it made me so fucked up in the head for a while, and I knew I should have moved out and just ended it, but both our parents were putting a lot of pressure on me to forgive and give him a chance in therapy. It was all text-based crap he was saying online, but it makes my stomach churn reading it, especially the stuff about his poor sisters. Like just the most gross, insane things you could think to say, and he would say it in all these public spaces I discovered. I was so beyond upset I felt like I had stepped into a complete nightmare realm. I suspected the severe porn addiction, but never the rest of it. My parents were saying I will destroy my daughter's life so badly if I leave, and didn't offer me much emotional support in this time, so I felt really ostracized and had almost no support or aid to help me make a smart choice for my daughter. He also seemed severely apologetic and said a lot of it was just stuff in his head from porn addiction, but specifically the anime stuff that highlighted these gross fetish cultures. I can't even watch a nice anime anymore ever since I read the shit, and I became so fucking miserable returning home. My family set up a small return party for me, and honestly when they all left I sobbed for hours, and it continued in waves for months, just scared and inconsolable. He started out incredibly sympathetic to my emotions and fears and let me establish a lot of boundaries that made me feel a little better, but as time went on he cared less and less if I was sad about it and acted pissed off that I was still hurting from it. I haven't talked to my dad about any of this since it happened because I think he feels shattered and guilty for changing my mind, and I don't want to make his emotional turmoil any worse than it has to be. So many selfish decisions my ex-fiancé made that shattered apart what could have been a very healthy and happy family. It feels like my heart was ripped out ever since that day onwards. The choice to stay was very scary for me, and now I feel so stupid it didn't even work in anyone's favor anyways. I just wanted to keep together the tiny family we had just created and believe in him. It's going to be a really grueling time when this has to all be put forward into consideration for my poor daughter. I cry for her so much. I considered this, which is horrible, but I had postpartum anxiety right out the gate, and she was always well examined by me and I remained incredibly hyper-vigilant about it. It's really sickening I had to even feel that way. I don't think he ever did, and I was always on her like a hawk, and she was heavily watched and from day one. I feel like it's hard for me to trust anyone though, and I always feel stressed out and exhausted from it. Learning to be more laid back is going to take a very long time for me. Thank you so much to everyone who's reached out, given support, advice, and sometimes just listened. My last update was heavy, and honestly writing it out helped me realize that I am truly, finally, done with him and all the chaos. There have been so many new developments, some hard, some amazing, and I wanted to give you all a full update, especially since this community has become a place where I feel seen and not judged. First, my eye. I had my third post-surgery checkup yesterday. The swelling is down a lot. I'm not scaring toddlers in Target anymore, at least. They did more imaging, and while my vision is mostly cloudy on that side, the doctor is hopeful. Apparently, once the swelling inside the socket fully resolves they'll know better. The custom implant in my orbital floor is settling well, but there's some nerve damage, so it kind of feels like Novocaine in my left cheek, all the time. I have to see a specialized ocularist in the city next month. These people custom paint prosthetics to match your living eye in case I do lose vision and want a cosmetic fix. Who even knew that was a job? But all in all, I'm healing and haven't gotten any infections or major setbacks, which frankly is a miracle. Pain-wise, it comes in weird waves. Sometimes I get a hot flash of pain while yawning or sneezing, and that makes me laugh at this point. But it's manageable. The bigger struggle has honestly been sleep. Nightmares are a thing, and now my daughter's started crawling into my bed a lot. It actually helps me, though. So, my ex has officially been indicted on 2 felony charges, aggravated assault and child endangerment, because our daughter was home during the attack, and also due to findings from the evidence he left behind. CPS and my DV advocate have both told me so many times that my documentation and all the evidence I kept have essentially made it a slam dunk case. His devices, phone and computer that the police seized, revealed a ton of stuff, not just his messages with underage girls but multiple forums where he bragged about getting away with things and encouraged letting things blow over, which the prosecutor said absolutely nukes his credibility for any kind of defense based on mental illness or remorse. Here's where it gets absolutely wild. The DA told me that there's an open investigation connected to some of the content found on his electronics. There is a much larger investigation going on. Apparently, he was part of a bigger Discord group that shared disturbing and illegal materials. Several accounts in this ring are being tracked by cybercrime teams. I'm now something called a witness victim for that part of the process. It's intense. I had to talk to an investigator from a regional agency, and they explained that my screenshots and his chats are helping establish patterns for multiple offenders. I'll be asked to give a statement, videotaped, later this month, not just for my assault but for this larger case. It's surreal. The best news is that this increases my protection significantly. Local law enforcement, cybercrime, and the DA are all working together and are in constant contact with me. He is banned from approaching not only me and my child, but my family members' homes, my workplace, my daughter's daycare, and the hospital. If he steps near any of these, cops will be on him in seconds. It makes me feel safer than I've felt since this all started. CPS has officially recommended supervised visitation only, pending the results of the criminal case. In reality, I doubt even that will be granted anytime soon, and even if it is, he would have to pay for a professional supervisor. The state won't let any family members do it due to the nature of his charges and the things found on his computer. There's also a restraining order extension hearing in 2 weeks. My advocate and lawyer both say with the new evidence and ongoing threat, the judge will almost certainly bump it up to at least 3 years, maybe even longer. I'm going to court much more confident than I thought. The last time we had a hearing, he showed up with his mother, who looked absolutely miserable. I almost felt sorry for her until she glared at me like I had ruined everything. He tried to claim I mutually participated in the fight, but with the mountain of evidence and police report, the judge was having none of it. I almost laughed when he claimed I choked him, because even his own lawyer seemed unprepared for that lie. My dad's health is not great. He's still sick and weak, but he's there for us in his own quiet way. My mom, who you all know I have a complicated relationship with, has swung hard in my favor. She's actually apologized for doubting me about my ex, and she's angry that he used her for help when he got out of jail. She comes over several times a week now, but she's not allowed any direct communication with my ex per the restraining order, which she respects. We're closer than we've been in years. She's even watched documentaries about post-traumatic growth and started talking to her friends about women's resources. It's not perfect, but seeing her try means a lot. This girl is my absolute world. She hasn't regressed, she's happy, says new words every day, and asks me every morning if the sun came up for mama. She brushes my hair, brings me pretend ice packs, her IKEA fabric vegetables, and we have tea parties every afternoon. I'm not going to pretend she hasn't noticed I'm different. Sometimes she hugs my face very gently, and when she sees my surgical scars, she just asks, "Boo-boo?" And I nod. She tells me, "It'll be all better, mama," and truly I find more healing in those words than in every painkiller prescription. I started trauma therapy with an amazing woman who specializes in DV. She's fierce, direct, and gentle, the exact mom friend I needed. She's helping me untangle a lot of the shame about the earlier incident and rewriting that story so that I can move forward and eventually testify without feeling crushed by guilt. We're working on radical acceptance, and for the first time I truly understand what people mean about not dragging your whole past with you everywhere. I also joined a support group for DV survivors. I was so nervous, but it turns out, everyone there gets it. The weird stuff like being hypervigilant about doors at night, or suddenly hating the smell of someone's cologne. Last week I told my whole story aloud for the first time and didn't break down. That feels huge. The landlord, who adored my ex for years, stopped me in the hallway and apologized for ever believing him. He's actually repainting and rekeying the building's exterior doors and has given me a private mailbox so no one can mess with my mail while the case is open. A random neighbor, who I barely knew, brought me soup and said she told her kids if they see my ex anywhere near the building, they're to call 911, no questions asked. The DA's office put me in touch with a crime victim compensation fund. They're reimbursing me for travel to medical appointments, therapy copays, even my lost wages from the week I spent in the hospital. I sobbed when I learned this was a thing. I got offered a spot in a grant-funded daycare for single and DV-affected parents, which is a miracle because it means I may actually be able to go back to school part-time in the fall. Grand jury indictment for the criminal investigation is in 2 weeks, and my lawyer is prepping me for testimony, though they may take my statement in writing if the DA's office agrees. His lawyer keeps trying to negotiate a plea deal, but has been told it's a non-starter unless he confesses and agrees to permanent orders. My therapist and I are making a plan for trauma anniversaries, and how to get ahead of the panic that creeps in as the legal dates get closer. I'm repainting my daughter's bedroom with her. We picked blossom pink and sunny yellow stripes, and she went wild with the paint roller. I've said yes to coffee with a friend for the first time in years who reconnected after seeing what I went through. I'm not looking to date, but small kindnesses from friends and other women have felt life-changing. I genuinely still have moments of deep sadness and resentment at what I lost, and terror at what almost happened. But I also have this weird, fierce hope that I haven't felt in years. I am not going to let this break me down or be my daughter's legacy. To anyone reading this who ever wonders if it's too late to start over, it isn't. If you're stuck, scared, and feel alone, know that you deserve people who believe you, a world that helps, and healing you couldn't have imagined. If no one else tells you, I do. Once court and everything is over, I want to take my daughter to the ocean for the very first time. I can't see well out of my left eye, but I'll help her gather shells, dig toes in the sand, and show her that some things are so much bigger and better than what we came from. Wow. First, I have to say how deeply moved and bolstered I am by the responses I've gotten here, And honestly, the last 3 weeks have brought such a crazy, which is to say, completely unpredictable, sometimes harrowing, sometimes good, wave of developments. There's so much new, I'll just dive in. First, the digital forensic unit finally finished securing everything from his electronics. I had a phone interview with a cybercrimes officer and learned the search turned up not only the predatory communications and the forums, there is, in fact, a much larger multi-state federal case. My ex's activity implicated several other individuals, some of whom are now facing their own indictments. Because of the nature of what was discovered, the Assistant United States Attorney's Office called me directly last week. I spent 2 hours on Zoom with a team of investigators, explaining the history, what I'd seen, how I'd found the screenshots, and then had to go more in-depth about the signs I'd missed, and how his behavior changed when he thought he wasn't being watched. It was exhausting, but the agent running the call said, "You quite literally just saved more than one child's life." I can't even process that. It's haunting and oddly empowering at once. It means the case against him is now headed not only for state, but possibly a federal level. If the U.S. attorney adopts it, his lawyer is now seriously out of her depth and a federal public defender will be brought in. My advocate told me, gently, but firmly, that I need to prepare for years of legal fallout, not just months. But it also means there's no path for joint custody, ever. They've also officially flagged my name as high-risk vulnerable witness, and a federal victim witness coordinator not only checked in on me but got me a personal alarm for free, a Ring camera, and enrolled me in a cyber safety program, which means my online presence is monitored by law enforcement for doxing or threats. Our last court appearance, geez. First, he showed up with a brand new lawyer, guess his old one quit, unsurprising, and tried to file an emergency motion to get access to our daughter. Well, the DA was ready and presented a timeline of criminal evidence. His new attorney seemed genuinely shocked at what her client had hidden from her. She ended up asking for a recess, and in the hallway tried to talk to me directly. The judge shut that down fast. In the end, the judge reaffirmed no visitation pending all criminal matters. Might as well be forever. But here's something wild. An old mutual friend of ours had apparently been secretly documenting some of his online behavior for years, and she reached out, through my advocate, to submit her own screenshots. Turns out, she'd found even more conversations with underage girls that my ex had never mentioned to me, or anyone, really, and she regretfully admitted she hadn't acted sooner out of fear and disbelief. She gave a statement and agreed to appear as a witness if needed. It was gutting, and healing. I realized how hidden in plain sight his manipulations were, and I don't feel so alone anymore. Also, a little justice for the girl in the forum. Now, the flip side. I had to go to the post office to sign for a letter, and half expecting more trauma, instead the postal clerk, who has seen me with my daughter for 2 years, pushed a wrapped package across the counter. "It's from everyone on your route who heard." Folks had pooled together supplies, gift cards, plush pillow, face serums for my healing skin, and a stack of handwritten notes, some from strangers, just saying, "You are brave and your daughter has a village." I ugly cried at the counter and they let me count to 40. Then, this is wild, but my daughter's little daycare class made me a happy healing banner and one of the teachers set up a free day a week for me just for mental health appointments or naps. Who knew actual acts like this even happen outside books? This week, my facial surgeons team invited me to take part in a new clinical trial for injectable treatment for facial nerve recovery. It's free to me, and although it's a little intimidating, I get advanced care, more checkups, experimental therapies that could help my feeling come back. When the nurse asked why I wanted to participate, I said it's as much about hope as it is about pain, and she nodded so hard I thought her ponytail would fall off. The prosthetic I consult was this week. I half joked that I wanted it to glow in the dark, but the ocularist, a young woman with a punk haircut, said, "You know, some moms actually get one with sparkles for their kids." We laughed, and my daughter said, "Mama Starface. Maybe I'll think about it." Nighttime is still hardest. My daughter's been having more night terrors, which the trauma therapist says is totally normal. She draws pictures of our family but always forgets her dad. When I ask her, she says too busy gone. We're not correcting her. Instead, I bought a feelings chart, and each morning we both point to what face we have. Sometimes I add a sticker for brave. A group of survivor moms from my support group, the Rainy Day Girls, a name that stuck after I mentioned our Bumblebee walk, now meets once a week. One has a daughter the same age. Our kids play while we swap horror stories and survival hacks. Someone started a women's binder, resources for therapy, food support, a list of lawyers who actually care. I got accepted to a part-time online college program. With a grant from the state, turns out, DV survivors get set-aside funds for tech and tuition. Who knew? I start classes in 2 months. I haven't studied in a decade, but every time I doubt myself, I think, if I survive this, I can manage a syllabus. We're moving. Not far, but enough, into a DV-friendly lease with on-site staff, private garage, a play yard, and apartments only leased to single mother families in the same program. It means I won't have to flinch every time a car pulls up. The program provides a caseworker and monthly grocery stipends. My daughter is most excited about the big blue slide by the building. Best of all, on my lowest day, a neighbor with a golden doodle spotted us in the rain and asked if I'd like to join their Saturday park cleanup. I almost said no, but went anyway. Ended up helping kids plant wildflowers and eating grilled cheese on a picnic blanket, while my daughter, in a bumblebee raincoat, chased clouds of robins. I laughed so hard I thought my stitches would burst. For a full hour, I forgot everything except how beautiful my girl is when she's covered in grass stains. I realized joy is something you defend the way you defend your child, by building it, piece by tiny piece, every day.